The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Toll-free 1-877-528-8255. Now, that is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My email address is xzone@talkstarradio.com. On MSN Messenger, talkstarradio@hotmail.com. And our websites, www.xzoneradio.com. and www.xzonetv.com. With the movie 2012 coming out this coming Friday, people around the world are saying, is it real or is this just hype? Well, continuing our series in The Truth About 2012, joining me this hour is Dr. Ervin Laszlo. He is the founder and president of the Club of Budapest, president of the Worldshift Network, founder of the General Evolution Research Group, co-chair of the World Wisdom Council, Fellow of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, member of the International Academy of Philosophy of Science, senator of the International Medici Academy, and editor of the international periodical World Futures, the Journal of General Evolution. And Doctor, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, nice to be here.
Tell me, Doctor, the year 2012, a lot of people are looking at it as doom and gloom, the physical end of the world ending as depicted in the book of Revelations in the Bible. Movie coming out 2012 shows everything from disaster to total apocalyptic events happening on this planet. And I'd like to ask you, sir, based on Worldshift 2012, what do you see happening on December the 21st, 2012?
Nothing that we'll actually notice. What we'll notice is will happen afterwards. If we fail to do certain things, like deflect certain trends that are now threatening the human survival, the carrying capacity of the planet, if we fail to do those things, then in the years that follow, this critical point, we'll notice that it will be very difficult to deal with climate change, very difficult with the rise of the sea level, with the availability of water for people, with the pollution of the air and of the soil, with the questions of poverty, and a number of issues that are now creating crises, such as an economic crisis, financial crisis, part of a total stress on the system that we have. And if we don't act in time, certain specific measures fail to be undertaken, then in the years following 2012, the situation will get worse and worse. And we will be moving down on a path that leads toward chaos and catastrophe, but it won't happen immediately in one day.
So when you hear people talking about the end of the Mayan calendar, the end of time as we know it, the total apocalyptic events of the world coming to an end, how does that make you feel? How do you react?
I think, thank goodness, that people pay attention to the fact that there are tipping points, but the idea that there's going to be a physical catastrophe is total nonsense. I mean, there could be a reversal, of course, of the magnetic poles of the Earth, and it's going to create problems with the electronic communication networks. There are likely to be solar activities and activities on the sun, which will mean that some of the solar plasma is reaching the Earth. It has been doing that in the last century as well. Occasionally it has happened. That is forecast to happen at the end of 2012 again, and it's going to make problems for such as navigation systems, for example. However, it's not a question of things are going to collapse physically. I mean, the planet per se is not subject to this given date when things are going to collapse. The planet is a relatively stable entity. The only thing that could really create a catastrophe would be a large meteorite slamming into it. But that's no explanation or expectation at this point that would happen at the end of 2012.
All right, Doctor, please stand by. You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break, and we'll be right back. Exonation this week, we're focusing on 2012. My guest this hour is Dr. Ervin Laszlo. His website, www.worldshift2012.org. That's worldshift2012.org. This is the X Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network. 1-877-528-8255 is toll free. xzone@talkstarradio.com is my email address. And visit our websites, www.xzoneradio.com and xzonetv.com. We'll be back after this 2-minute commercial break as we continue live and around the world right here on Talkstar.
Talks about a new world in the morning, new world in the morning, so they say. I myself don't talk about a new world in the morning, new world in the morning, that's today. And I can feel a new tomorrow. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free. Email xzone@talkstarradio.com. On MSN Messenger, talkstarradio@hotmail.com, and our websites, www.xzoneradio.com and xzonetv.com. Dr. Ervin Laszlo is my special guest. He has a Ph.D. from the Sorbonne and is the recipient of honorary Ph.D.s from the United States, Canada, Finland, and Hungary. Formerly professor of philosophy, systems science, and future studies in various universities in the U.S., Europe, and the Far East. He lectures now worldwide. And Dr. Laszlo, when was it, in your opinion, sir, that the world became conscious of the problems that we were having and everything seems to culminate to the year 2012?
Well, the consciousness that we are having problems, which are global problems, and are not just the problems of global business, but global ecology and global society, that has been growing gradually and has, in the past 10, 15 years, it has really reached public awareness. Now, at the same time, since the late 1980s, there have been publications, started first by the archaeologist, our anthropologist, Jose Arguelles, but a number of others as well, since the late 1980s, which shows that there are prophecies coming from the Mayan civilization, which show that at the end of 2012 will be a critical time, a time of transition. Then since then, a number of other prophecies have come to light from the Hopi tradition, from the Sanskrit tradition, from astrology, and a number of esoteric sources, so that people are beginning to associate global problems with this date as being a critical point. And in my research, of course, I'm not taking it off. Not taking off from these esoteric sources. I'm taking off from the scientific observations and calculations of the trends and processes that affect our lives. And I've come to the conclusion that probably sometime within the next 3 to 5 years, some of these trends are going to reach what is known as a chaos point or a critical point, where they're going to be very difficult to reverse. And so there is a coincidence between the age-old insight about a critical point and the current observation of trends that have to do with our survival and well-being on this planet. And this is why I say that we should prepare for a possibility of a major transition point at the end of 2012. But it's not because all the forecasts have said so, but because we are moving toward a point of no return that we have to handle, and we better be prepared for it so that it won't be a return, it won't be a launch pad toward a negative chaos situation, but could be, and this I want to emphasize, could be the point of birth, of emergence, of a new phase in our civilization, in our existence on this planet, which is necessary and entirely possible.
So, Doctor, the end of the Mayan calendar, December 21st, 2012, was this just coincidence, or did the Mayans know something way back then that they were preparing the rest of the world to face the problems that we're going to be facing? And if they did have this knowledge, where did it come from?
Oh, that's a very good question. We don't know. But if they had this knowledge, it's unlikely to have come from them. But we also know that it's very unlikely that there shouldn't be other civilizations, extraterrestrial kinds, which would be unable to communicate with us. It's very likely that such civilizations exist and that they are able and occasionally do communicate. And the question is how these are being picked up. There are indications that periodically there are civilizations in the past, and perhaps indications right now with crop circles and other things, that there's communication even at the present time. And so the knowledge of this kind of a knowledge about critical phases is not likely to have originated with a group of indigenous people, no matter how advanced their thinking may have been. It's likely to have almost, I would say, extraterrestrial origin. But this is speculation. The fact is that they have come up with this kind of information, not only they, but a lot of other traditions, and that they all point to the same date. So I think we should take this date seriously.
Doctor, if there is an ET connection, why don't the extraterrestrials make it simple, land, and talk to the leaders of the country, make their appearance known worldwide, and help us to face these problems?
Well, now we are dealing with issues that have been questions of speculation, of mystery for the time being. There are good indications that, and this is not, by the way, not my special field. I'm a philosopher of science and theoretician systems, but I've looked into these problems, and there are some indications that for communication with them, for direct communication, we have to develop capacities of our brain that are indigenous to us, that are possible, but we haven't developed them. That we have to develop a kind of a broadband kind of consciousness, a broadband reception in our brain to be able to pick up the kind of messages that other civilizations might have around us. So there may be a question of them trying to communicate in indirect ways. There is also speculation that they do not want to communicate and make their physical presence known, because of this would be a very strong direct interference in our affairs. But this is pure speculation. What I believe is that there are other civilizations, that are other intelligences that are surrounding the planet and that are creating sources of information that we could pick up and occasionally can pick up, and that some of this information is designed to help us overcome that very critical period that we face in the world today. But what I want to emphasize is that we have to face this critical period on our own. If we can get help, I think it's wonderful, and we should be open to it, but we cannot rely on help coming from outside of the planet. We are here ourselves, and we have to make or break our own destiny.
Exonation, Dr. Ervin Laszlo is our special guest. His website is worldshift2012.org. That's worldshift2012.org. Doctor, do you think that humanity is ready for to greet the extraterrestrials without going into panic mode and making things worse than they really are?
I don't know, but that's not the issue. I'm not sure the extraterrestrials want to make themselves manifest in that very clear-cut way when they actually show up. There have been indications that there have been flying saucers or spacecraft actually crashing. I know people who have been involved, is investigating that, and there's no doubt that there have been incidents like that. But we cannot be dependent on some other civilization making themselves known when we know very well that we are facing a critical situation on this planet ourselves, and we have to take our own destiny into our own hands. And so if there is help like this, it's likely to come in a subliminal way. It's likely to come in terms of symbols and intuitions to us, to which people respond. And I don't believe it's very likely that we are going to have a Hollywood type of invasion or manifestation on a physical plane at this point.
You do a lot of traveling, doctors. You give worldwide seminars, lectures. Is the 2012 phenomenon worldwide?
It's worldwide believed to be the case, yes. Almost everywhere. The traditions, whether it's look at the African and the Asian or the Western traditions, they do talk about the end of 2012. But I should mention, and it's very important to recognize, they do not say that the end of 2012 is the end of the world or end of humanity. They say it's the end of a phase or an epoch, an era, and there's another one coming. Even the Mayans talk about the fifth sun dawning at that point. We are talking about large cycles. It's a cyclical view. Almost all traditional cosmologies, civilizations, views of the world, have had a cyclical view of evolution, of development, not linear like we have in the West. They think things are recurring. Perhaps they are moving onto a higher level as they recur, but they're coming around, as it were, in cycles. And what is coming to be accepted almost worldwide now, that the end of a cycle happens to come at a very large cycle, possibly 26,000 years or so, happens to come at the end of, in our calendar, the end of December 21, 2012. So that we have to take seriously, because this is an intuition that is occurring to people in very, very different cultures, and many, many people are responding to this.
The intuition that you talk about, Doctor, how much of the so-called intuition is actually true intuition compared to media hype?
Well, I think media hype is, you can tell very, very easily, they're completely off the wall, like saying that everything is going to collapse at that point. Media could take this seriously, as I think like in this discussion we are taking it seriously, but we have to look at not just the intuitions, which is something, it's like a wake-up call.
Right.
But what do we wake up to, you know? So we have to look at the situation, and for that we have observations, we have computations, we have all the instrumentation that we have, all of us telling us one thing, that the carrying capacity or the space for the survival, for the viability of the human population is being reduced if we continue the way we are doing today. We have close to 7 billion people today. If we continue to treat each other and our world in the way we do, there's not going to be enough resources, enough free air, enough water, enough habitable space for 7 billion people. And this critical point, the tipping point, could come already at the end of 2012. So this is what we have to look at. This is where our future really lies.
Doctor, please stand by. We have to take a news break at the bottom of the hour. Very interesting talk with my very special guest this hour, Exonation, Dr. Ervin Laszlo. His website is www.worldshift2012.org. That's worldshift2012.org. And Dr. Laszlo and I will be back on the other side of this news break as we continue live and around the world from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network.
The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Belinda, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X-Zone.
This is Psychic Dorothy from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep, to everything.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. Our very special guest this hour is Dr. Ervin Laszlo. He is the gentleman behind Worldshift 2012. That's www.worldshift2012. And Doctor, I was wondering if you could tell our listening audience around the world a little bit about Worldshift 2012.
Well, the two components of this title of the book, Worldshift and the date. Worldshift means a fundamental change in the way we behave toward each other and the way we treat our environment as a planetary species worldwide, because we now live almost on all habitable parts of the globe and we interact with almost all of the processes that make life possible. Yes. Now, and the date 2012 is to call attention to the fact that this could be a tipping point beyond which it will be difficult to reverse the trends that are now threatening our well-being on this planet. So we need to shift from a scenario or a path that leads toward breakdown, toward problems, toward chaos, to another scenario, another path that leads toward another civilization with different values, with different structures, so that we can live peacefully and sustainably with well-being, all of us on this planet. It's possible because we have the technology, there's enough energy coming to us from the sun and from other non-renewable sources. We have the know-how. It's up to us whether we shift to a sustainable way or whether we go into increasing crisis in an unsustainable condition.
Doctor, in your opinion, have we passed the point of no return yet?
Some people say that in some respects we have, but overall, in terms of the situation of humanity, we have not. In some respects, for example, we will never have the kind of a stable climate that we had for most of the 20th century. In fact, we have had since the last 10,000 years, since the end of the last ice age. So we are now moving into a more turbulent climatic situation. And we also are moving toward higher levels of sea levels and greater problems with the availability of fossil energies and fresh water. Some of these respects, sure, we have passed peak points or tipping points. But on the whole, we have still the means and all the resources necessary to create a livable condition for all people on the planet. So in that respect, we have time. We have a window in time. It doesn't last forever, I believe that the famous prophecies talked to the end of 2012 as a crucial point also tell us that a tipping point, a global tipping point, could come around then sometime. So that we should pay attention to the fact that we have 3-4 years before us in which we can recreate the kind of conditions under which the planet can sustain 7 billion people. As we are presently today, it only sustains this many people because a lot of people live in absolute abject poverty,
yes,
and they receive much less than their share.
On your website, beneath Worldshift 2012, is co-creating the foundations of a peaceful, just, and sustainable world by the end of 2012. Do you think we're going to be able to reach that goal?
Like, Rob, it's not even a question of forecasting on predicting. The question is doing it. The future is not to be just predicted. The future is to be created. It's up to us. We're reaching a point that's known in the system sciences and in simulation theory and all that as a tipping point. Now, a tipping point or a chaos point is one that many things are possible except one. You can't stay the same way you have been. You've got to change.
Yes.
It's like riding a bicycle. When you get to a point where you can't go forward anymore, you either fall off or you find another way to go forward.
Exactly.
And this is the point that we face, and here, whether or not we'll make it is not written anywhere. It's not decided. It's in our hands. It's in our hands of the people who wake up and say, okay, something needs to be done. Let's get together and doing it, because we can do it. The important factor is we can do it. We can change. Yes, we can. Sure, in all respects on the global plane as well. But whether we actually will, it's not yet decided. It's up to us.
I have faith in the human race, Doctor, and I believe that we will, because everybody is certainly sitting up and taking notice as to what is going on with global warming, the need to get into alternative energy, to get rid of fossil fuel burning, to get rid of the nuclear capability of certain countries that are regarded worldwide as, hotheads. And I have to ask you this question. Where does a person's own spirituality and well-being come into the Worldshift 2012?
Comes in right at the base, because the problems that we experience are man-made problems. They are human. We create them because we have a certain view of ourselves and of the world, and we believe that we can manipulate the world we want, and we can represent our own interests, and eventually it will be good for the world. As some 50 years ago or so, the head of General Motors once pointed out in a congressional hearing in the U.S., it said, what's good for General Motors is good for the world. This kind of, rather naive belief that what you do for yourself is likely to be and bound to be good for everybody else has fallen by the wayside. We know now that what's good for us individually has to be good, but must be made to be good with what is good for our society, for all of humanity, and for the whole planet. So it's up to us, and it depends on our values. Whether our values are greed, selfishness, and just reproducing ourselves, which is behaving like a cancer does in an organism. It just reproduces itself until finally it kills the host organism. Or whether we recognize that we are part of an organism, which we call the living system, the Gaia system, the biosphere, this living world on this planet. We are the essential part, we are a critical part of it, and we start behaving like a constructive, positive part of it instead of a cancer in it.
1-877-528-8255 is toll free. My name is Rob McConnell. A special guest this hour is Dr. Ervin Laszlo. His website is www.worldshift2012.org. That's www.worldshift2012.org. Doctor, what brought you in to doing the wonderful work you're doing now and wanting to wake people up and to get everything back to a point where we have, as you say on your website, co-creating the foundations of a peaceful, just, and sustainable world by the end of 2012? What was your motivation?
Well, I developed system theory and evolution theory. In other words, the idea that complex systems evolve over time and there's a certain dynamic involved, and you can compute and calculate some of this, what is happening, how systems get together in an environment and create new higher level systems. This is a very exciting thing, and I've been involved in that for over 40 years, the theoretical part. Then at one point, I was invited by the Princeton Center of International Studies, this was in the mid-70s already, to apply these ideas to what they call the world system. At that time, it was considered mainly an economic and political system. And I went and gave a series of seminars in Princeton and the Woodrow Wilson School there, and out of this came a book, and this book was picked up by the United Nations and by other groups like the Club of Rome, and it launched me in a whole series of researches and activities whereby I became aware that we are moving on a path, in a developmental trend, which is unsustainable. It cannot just keep it like this without encountering a point at which the system collapses. So as I became aware of that already in the late 1970s, I developed more and more of my time to writing and to talking about this and to coming together with people and creating organizations like I created the Club of Budapest with the Dalai Lama and Liv Ullmann and Václav Havel and Milos Forman and a number of well-known people, Peter Gabriel. So in order to call attention to that, we have both a danger and an opportunity before us. We are facing a watershed. The watershed doesn't mean that we must go down. The watershed means that we can't go on as we have, that we have to change. And the unique chance that we have now is that we can change because the world has become unsustainable. So therefore, we can change. We cannot go on as it is. A unique chance, a unique opportunity. And I'm very excited by talking to young people, telling them that this is the first generation history that can decide whether it's to be the last generation or whether it's to be the first generation of a new world. It's a wonderful time to be alive.
It certainly is. I'm just reading through the honorary members of the Club of Budapest. Let me see, Thomas Berry, the theologian and scientist, and the list goes on. Of course, Peter Gabriel, the musician. Jane Goodall, the scientist. Let me see, Mikhail Gorbachev, the former leader of the Soviet Union. Edgar Mitchell, a good friend of the X-Zone Nation, is on there as well. And the list goes on and on and on. It's a list of very prestigious yet hard-working people who have given and continue to give so much in order for this planet to keep on going. And they're all sending the same message out to those who listen. It's not too late. We have to take pro-action. We have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Exactly right, yes. Yeah. Now, we are developing a number of projects. One of them would be of particular interest to you, I think, in Canada, although, of course, it's a worldwide project, but it will focus on Canada next June. The next June, end of June, will be the meeting of the G8, which will then be expanded into G20, the economic leaders of the world, to discuss some global problems. And during the same time, we are creating a parallel group, which will be kind of like a shadow parliament or a shadow government, which we call the Worldshift 20. And we are asking some of the best-known individuals in the world who to become part of this. I had the pleasure yesterday to speak with Deepak Chopra and ask him to be part of it, and he immediately agreed. So we will communicate in a short while already the names of these people. The point is that we will meet north of Toronto. Our location will probably be the Grail Springs Resorts, which have been very kindly made available to us for this purpose, and meet at the same time as the G20 meet and come up with our own conclusions, review the agenda of the G20, and say what it is that we feel needs to be added on, if anything. But it's unlikely that, of course, the political economic leaders will think of all aspects of the problem. So we try to complement this in the same sense in which there is complementary medicine complementing sort of the official medicine, sort of, to bring a more balanced view into the world. That's just one of the projects that we're doing under the heading of a Worldshift 2012 Alliance.
What can be done, as far as you're concerned, sir, about the number of hungry on this planet, the number of sick people on this planet, the number of people that are dying because they can't even get clean drinking water. How do we solve these problems?
Partially, these problems, in part, respond to financing. It's been calculated that a small percentage, maybe not more than 8 or 10% of the world's military budget put to eradicate hunger and poverty could go a long way toward doing this. Obviously, it's also a human problem. It's not just an economic problem. It's also a social problem. And also, it's an ecological problem because we have to safeguard those environments. If we flood, for example, low-lying areas with rising sea levels, then no matter what we do to those people, they'll have to flee. If we remove the possibility of having clean and fresh water to many of these people because polluting the water supplies and lowering the water tables by overusing them, then of course they'll be dying of polluted water and of the lack of water. So there are many ways that we need to interact. But the point is that we have the money, it's just not spending it right. And we have the technical capability, we have the know-how. What we need is the will and the political economic structures of cooperation so that we can apply the money, apply the know-how, the technology to really attack these problems. In principle, we can do it. The only thing that's holding us back are old-fashioned and obsolete selfish concerns about maintaining privileges that are no longer actually valid or are timely. So it's time to rethink and to move and becoming really a planetary organization. Not only big business can be needs to be planetary. As a humanity, we need to move to a global scale whereby we cooperate. We don't lose ourselves as an individual or individual nation or individual people.
Doctor, we have to take a commercial break. Please stand by. Dr. Ervin Laszlo is our special guest. Worldshift2012.org. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away. Exonation, Dr. Laszlo's website is worldshift2012.org. That's worldshift2012.org. Doctor, how can the listeners around the world right now take part in the change that has to take place in order for us to build that new foundation of peace and that new foundation of trust that is so desperately needed worldwide?
We have all the means available. We can live more sustainably. We can try to use the new energy sources whenever is possible in transportation, in our house. We can try to cut down on pollution. We can try to cut back on our carbon footprint. We can try to cut back on our ecological footprint. Just to give you some examples, very simple ones. For example, it's seldom known that the average North American household diet, actually the way we cook, the way we eat, has a larger carbon footprint than the way we drive, than the way that was produced by transportation, by our cars. That's because we are wasting an awful lot. We are using things that are like, for example, red meat, which takes an awful lot of energy to produce. There are a lot of things that are wrapping it up, packaging materials, and wasting it. So many, many cases, we can use better the energy more efficiently, and we can start to communicate better. We can try to consume in a more selective way. We can try to patronize companies that we know are more responsible, that take care of not only the employees but also the host communities, that take care that what kind of resources they use, what kind of labor force they use, and what happens to their products when they're being discarded. A lot of new technologies and production methods, a lot of new services coming online. It's up to people to select, to choose those that are really truly sustainable. So ask yourself, is that what you are doing really able to be multiplied by 7 billion? In most cases, the answer is no. We're overusing the capacity of this earth. It's been calculated that the average footprint of resources is 2.5 times the Earth's share, which is sustainable, which means that we would need another planet and a half just to support us in an ongoing manner on this planet. But we can use energy better. We can use resources better. We can use more of this solar radiation that's coming to us. And everything is available to us, but we have to wake up, look around, and see, do we live in a sustainable, responsible manner, or are we just unconsciously still wasting and overusing everything that's given to us?
Dr. Laszlo, I want to thank you so much, sir, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us here on the X Zone. And I would love to have you back on because we still have so much to talk about. And if there's any way that we can help you and Worldshift 2012 in any way, please let me know, and you have our full support.
Wonderful. This is an open organization. We want to get people to join together, organizations, and the media is very, very important. So thank you, and we'll draw on you, certainly.
Dr. Laszlo, thank you very much, sir. Safe travels, and thank you for doing everything that you're doing and bringing in the wonderful people together that you have at www.worldshift2012.org. Good night, Doctor.
Good night.
Oh, www.worldshift2012.org. That's www.2012.org. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past as we continue live and around the world on Talkstar.